as the leaves change color and fall brings a bite to the air. You're watching 5 after midnight. Pleasant dreams. 1.
When I was 10, my family had just moved into a new house that was surrounded by woods. Up until this point, I had lived in an apartment in the city, and I had shared a room with my younger sister. Needless to say, my imagination would occasionally get the best of me in the new room by myself, surrounded by the rustles and creak of the woods and the trees. One night I was awoken by a loud rustling of leaves. It sounded as if something was slowly shuffling on the ground, jostling the leaves. Normally this wouldn't be the cause of much alarm, but as I tried to go back to sleep, I kept hearing odd taps and sounds from outside. I was too frightened to look out the window, and I began to contemplate going to my parents, when there was a loud clank. All of a sudden, I could clearly hear a rhythmic clank, clank, clank. It sounded like a sharp contrast to the usual sounds that I had grown accustomed to, and I ran to my parents' bedroom. Understandably, they were confused but consoled me, and I spent the night in their bed. The next morning, I went to the bus stop for school, and I passed one of the giant trees in our yard that abuts my bedroom window. Right in the middle of that giant old tree, probably 6 or 7 feet up, was a long, rusty nail that had been hammered into the tree. To this day, my mother insists that that nail was there when we first moved in, but I remember her being just as stunned as I was when I first showed her that nail in the tree. Incidentally, that tree developed some sort of parasite or something and had to be cut down so it wouldn't fall and damage the home a couple of months later.
2.
I was with a group of friends, and we were all going cycling through the forest at around midnight. It was pitch black, and we were carrying our bikes down these stairs that were in the forest. One of my friends says to the other, who was just standing staring at him from the bottom of the stairs, to hurry up. After a few awkward seconds of just staring, we realized that this is not our friend, but some man that was in the forest at midnight on his own. He didn't say anything, and we all freaked the fuck out and got on our way as quickly as possible. I remember cycling away paranoid as fuck, thinking that we were about to be hacked to death in the woods.
3.
One time, we went camping at a spot that we hiked a few miles up to get to. There was a massive logged hill that was in view of our campsite. It wasn't covered in any trees when we went. We hiked around it while it was still light out. There was literally no road access here. Any roads that were there were all blocked off by either 6-foot impassable trenches or massive mounds of dirt that would have required a rock crawler to get over. There was no way a human could have gotten on that hill in the dark, and since we hiked it fairly late in the evening to gather water from the stream, there was no way someone could have gotten in and set up camp without us noticing. Fast forward to about 1 a.m. It is completely blackout. No lights or civilization for miles other than a farm or two miles and miles back. We're sitting around the fire, bullshitting each other. All of a sudden, I notice a light moving right where the hill was where the light was all out. It was bobbing back and forth like a person walking with a flashlight. There was no conceivable way that this was happening on that hill in the dark. It was logged and regrowing, which meant lots of heavy bush covering the entire thing. Any access via vehicle we would have heard. Other than us talking and the cackle of the fire, everything was silent. The light bobbed around the hill for well over an hour, as if someone was just wandering around. They would have easily been able to see us sitting around the fire from that high of a vantage point. We called out to them. We tried to get a little closer, but there was no negotiating the terrain on the hill in the nighttime. We got no answer. We heard some faint rustling of the brush, but that was all. It was pretty damn creepy, and we never did figure out who it was. We hiked it around up the hill the next morning, but there was no sign of any activity, nor any sign of the roads being any more passable than they were the day before.
4.
Late last summer, a friend invited me to a bonfire party a little ways out of our city in Alaska, at a place which I was very familiar with. So 2 of my friends and I leave in my car around 10 p.m., following our other friends' cars. We came up to the exit off the highway, and the cars in front of me pass it. Confused, I call the friend that invited me in the car in front of us. Apparently the party is in a town about 30 minutes out, which I was unfamiliar with, but we decided to continue anyway. All of the cars arrived at a communal meeting area before it's explained where we're going. We had to take some pretty bumpy roads through the woods, which were right on the edge of a large beach where the bonfire was. The beach and the woods were used for dirt bikes and four-wheelers and the like, so it was pretty rugged terrain, but everyone's cars held up just fine. Fun times were had. The 3 of us didn't drink, smoke, or become impaired in any way during the night, and we had to work the next day, so we decided to head back into town around 2:30 a.m. Now keep in mind that this is Alaska, so when we got to the bonfire around 11 p.m., it was still fairly light, but by the time we had left, it had gotten really dark. It had been raining the whole week, which made the beach pretty muddy, and a lot of it was large puddles that we could only see reflected in the moonlight. Because of this, we kept driving into the water off the edge of the beach while looking for this ridiculous path into the woods, which already had me pretty scared. We turned around to get away from the water a little bit in an attempt to make it back to the bonfire and ask someone to help us get out of there. Unfortunately, in the pitch black darkness with nothing but my car's weak headlights to rely on, we couldn't find shit. Just woods. Finally, salvation. We see a 4-wheeler coming up out of one of the 4-wheeling paths, and we flag them down for help. There are 3 guys and 1 girl in this Jeep, and they are severe redneck Alaskan hicks. The look of them scared me quite a bit, but this was our only chance we had at getting home. "You're not too far. We'll get you out of here. Just try to keep with us, 'cause we're going to take the fun way," they said to me. I didn't think twice about what he meant by that. I was just so beyond happy that we were finally going to get off this godforsaken beach. I start driving behind them in what seems like a familiar path, but I am soon mistaken. The paths we're driving on are getting narrower and narrower, and my Hyundai Santa Fe isn't happy about it. But then the creepy people in the 4Runner were getting along just fine. Then the path we're on comes to a very sharp U-turn around a tree. The other people pull some crazy maneuver which involved gripping their front driver wheel on this tree and spinning their fucking car around it. Alright, just do what they say so we can turn around and get back on the real path, I thought to myself. Backing up was not an option at this point. All I could do was go around it. I knew that my car was not going to come out of this looking the same, and I had accepted that fate. I just wanted to get home. So I do what I had to do. I gun it toward the tree, grip my wheel on it just right, and success. My car starts to spin around the tree, but it doesn't finish. It gets stuck between this tree and the one next to it. And to add to the horror of this, the wheels weren't even touching the ground. My car was suspended in the air between two trees. So my friends and I get out of the car, and I'm in tears. The creepy people get out of their car too, and they're all, "Oh shit, we thought your car might be a little too big for this one." And this is when we notice how stumbling drunk and fucked up on other drugs they were. Parts of Alaska like this are renowned for their amount of meth abuse that goes on. The one that was driving gets in my car and tries to get it out, but it obviously doesn't work. So they decide to tie a tow rope to the front bumper and pull it forward, ignoring my protests. I told them to stop, but the one guy stares at me in this menacing way, and he says that he is handling this now. It should be noted that between the three of us, we had 2 phones, one of which was mine with no service at all and 3% battery, and my friend's with a little more battery but no service to speak of. All 3 of us are beyond scared, and these hicks were creepy as fuck, and we assumed they were going to kill us. So one of my friends tries to call the police, but the line keeps getting disconnected. As soon as the hicks start pulling on my car, we hear a loud pop, and the car shuts off. We tried to turn the key, but nothing would happen. So the 3 of us are in the middle of the woods, miles from anyone that could ever hear us, cell phones that aren't working, car suspended between 2 trees, at the mercy of 4 methed out rednecks. One redneck gets in the Jeep and backs it into my car, pushing it out of the trees and ruining my bumper. My 2 friends and I get in the car and start steering as the hicks pull us, now backwards, through this bicycle path towards salvation. But oh no, my problems are not over. The hicks pull my car right into a tree, ignoring our honks, and screams to stop. He laughs at this. So myself and 2 hicks have to push the car forward to get it back on the path, while one of my friends was inside steering. I braced against the tree pushing, and without warning, the 2 hicks stop pushing. My SUV then rolls back, crushing me between the tree, fracturing 2 of my ribs. The car is realigned, and the hicks pull us right back to where they found us. Oh, and at this point, 3 separate police departments were out looking for us. But they couldn't find us since we didn't even know where the fuck we were. The hicks keep pressing us to give us a ride back home, to Anchorage 2 hours away. And we were not having it. The one guy says to us, "Get in the car," and pulls out a switchblade out of his pocket. My friend had to yell at them, "We are not getting in your car. You can leave us alone now so the police can come and find us because they're on their way." And that sent them running. Unfortunately, she was lying, and the police were not on their way, as both phones had died. The 3 of us stand outside for a good half an hour before some friendly people in a truck roll up, and we offer them $20 to tow us out to the main road, where we can wait for another hour for my friend's wonderful mother to come and drive our sorry asses home. And that's the story of how some crazy hicks were about to kill me and 2 of my friends after totaling my car in the woods 2 hours from home.
5.
Me and my friends had just finished exams to close out our junior year at college and decided to go camping before we all had to start our summer jobs. There were 7 of us, 3 girls and 4 guys, including me, my friend Jane, and her boyfriend Dean. We took 2 cars with the guys in the lead car and us girls traveling behind. They pulled off into the first campsite that they could find because it was getting dark and they wanted to set up tents in an area that they could clearly see. We all hiked into a field near a pine forest and set up our tents before we fanned out to start find kindling for a fire. Jane felt uneasy and decided to stay at camp while everyone else searched. When we returned, Jane was agitated, but not enough for us all to be concerned. We assumed that she didn't like the location of the campsite, or that she was having problems with Dean, or that she just wasn't fond of camping. We built a fire and sang worship songs because we were all involved in local churches. After singing and joking, we all went to bed. The boys went in one tent and the 3 girls slept in another. Sometime during the night, our tent was unzipped, and someone slipped in and crawled up parallel to Jane. I thought it was just Dean trying to wake Jane and talk to her about something because I could feel her body moving like she was being shaken awake. I told Dean that he couldn't be in here and that if he wanted to talk to Jane, he should do it in the morning. Her body stopped moving and Dean slicked out. I quickly fell back asleep. The next morning, we all woke up and made breakfast, but we realized that Jane wasn't with us. We called to her, but she didn't come out of the tent. I asked Dean what he said to her last night, and Dean said that he told her that once they started hiking and exploring, she would be enjoying camping more. I responded, "Why did you have to tell her in the middle of the night?" He cocked his head to the side, like our dog used to when he was confused, and says, "No, I told her that at dinner. The only time that I got up last night was to pee." Skeptical, I went to the tent to ask Jane myself. She was on her left side facing the wall of the tent. I grabbed her shoulder and rolled her onto her back. Her sleeping bag was spongy and wet with blood. She had been stabbed in the chest several times. They still don't know who did it.